It's an Archaeo Death interview with Professor Howard Williams and his guest.
Hey, there he is. How are you?
I'm good. The little princess is sleeping, so...
You're having a break. You're having a break from napping Flint for once. I have this image of you always, like 24/7, even when you're sleeping.
I'll go out in the cave later and nap all night.
Exactly, because I have no imagination, so I assume that what I see people doing on TikTok is what they do all of their lives, because I have no imagination. But I've got questions for you about stone tool technology, because for my regular viewers, I have to confess that while I've been around in my career people who know so much about stone tool technology and flint nappers, and it's always been on the edge of something I've done. I've never really practiced or learnt about flint. So I even though I should be really knowledgeable about flint, I know very little about it. I just pretend. I'm not really an archaeologist. It's just I don't even know how electricity works, or how I just pretend to know. So I mean, for me, it's a mystery. It's a mystery. So I was going to ask you, what's the why flint? What is it about flint that's so cool and tells us so much? I mean, I know flint is only one kind of stone, but I mean, what is it that makes flint such an important, material?
Well, first of all, it's like, if we take all our human history, right, from our first step down the tree, right, it's 3 million or 6 million years ago, right, up until the rise of complex societies. When is that? Like in the 5th millennium. Before that, until at least the Chalcolithic, stone tools are most important source of information on the past, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of course there are other sorts of information like organic material, right? Bones, osteological evidence, but the fossil record is very limited, right? These stone tools are not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So our history of if we say like this is the human history, then this much, or maybe that much, is a historical period, and then all of this is expressed in stone tools.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important. I mean, there are so many things like when we come out of Africa, right, in the last 5,000 years, all around the world we've developed complex state societies, right? The Incas, the Great Zimbabwe, the Indus, Aztecs, Europe, Mesopotamia, Egypt, right?
Yeah.
So something before that happened that was very important, right, in the Middle Paleolithic in Africa. And that is expressed in stones. So that is why stones is important, because they're preserved, they're there. We can study them and they can tell us a lot about human behavior.
Yeah.
Right, how they made their tools.
So it's not just that they're a well-preserved indicator of past societies. They tell us about the way they thought, the way they interacted with their environment. So how do we get from stone tools to cognition? How do we work out to behavior? How do we make those links? I mean, because it's easy, isn't it? You just knock a few holes and suddenly it's there. I've seen your videos. It takes you only a few seconds.
Yeah, boom.
Yeah. But no, it's a complicated process. It's abstract thinking, isn't it?
Well, the question you ask is like, if you ask a basketball player, how does he dunk the ball, right?
Yeah.
And it's about a skill that is experienced, right?
Yeah.
You have years of experience. you know how your body behave, how the ballistic of your hammer or antler mallet, how that strike the core and what happens, and there's a strategy behind it. You have to set it up in a right way. Somebody compared it to like playing chess, where you have to like make a certain strategy, and then you're there, and then you can produce tools, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, how is this expressed on the stones? You probably know more than this than some of the viewers, but I'd just like to show just.
I honestly, if I did learn it, I've forgotten it all. So assume no knowledge.
Well, fair enough. You know, I probably also forgot more of the Viking period than than I learned. But okay, so here we have a blade, right?
Yeah.
And this has like a platform. That's where you strike it off from the core.
Yeah.
Boom. So it's a platform remnant. This tells us about how the stone will strike.
Right.
Struck, where you place the hammer stone when you strike it. Then we have, and also how this fracture initiate. But I'm coming back to that. Then we have the bulb of precaution, maybe.
Yeah.
Can you see that there's a little bulb here?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we of course have the ventral side, the belly of the blade, so to say. And then we have the back of the blade, the dorsal side, right? And this tells us something about how the stone fractured and how it follows these ridge lines. But also the cores, of course, tells us something.
It's like a ripple, isn't it? It's like the reverberations of the strike, sort of echo. It's like ripples on water, isn't it? Is that a fair analogy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's all about vibration. Stone napping is all about feeling the vibration. But also like cores can tell us something, like how a core, this is a Levallois core, I'm coming back to this, but how it's set up.
Yeah.
Right? And here you also have like a core with a platform.
Yeah.
So this can tell us something about how humans and early hominins were able to plan their actions. Right, because if you have a certain complexity to your tool production, this might also apply to other areas.
So
right?
there's not necessarily good quality flint everywhere, right?
No,
so
no,
there's
no.
It's that knowledge of the landscape, then repeat knowledge of going back, acquiring it, and then knowing what to look for as a good quality. I mean, would they use sound? Would they use sight? How would they choose? That's the thing that interests me.
You can use
I've seen
sound.
you do this on the cliffs, haven't you? You pick out, you kind of, you can tell.
Yeah, I do like it. Oh, this doesn't actually have a good sound. Let me just think. This one here has a really good sound. Right?
Wow.
The algorithm love when I do that. I have to do it on every video because then I know it will get many views. But the sound of a stone can tell you, but they also used Neanderthals and archaic Homo sapiens also used basalt and other kind of stones that doesn't have that sound, so it's not.
Right.
And also the Olduvai technology wasn't necessarily used on flint.
No.
So as so it's not only about it becomes when you have like this dagger here.
Wow.
When you make stuff like this, you have to have a real good stone. You have a good source of stone. You know how to, like every good craftsman, you have to work with good materials, right?
Yeah.
But for the Olduvai, for the Australopithecines and the Homo habilis, they didn't necessarily use good stone and plan that much ahead, right? But that also tells us about how this ability to do complex behavior, how that develops over time, right? So that's why I think stone tools is extremely interesting, and everybody should stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing.
So when you get to modern, anatomically and cognitively modern Homo sapiens, and they're producing these really amazing obsidian, and flint blades, you've got a modern mind thinking. How do we go back to some of these early hominin species, though, and work out how they thought? Because it's not just, even the most basic, it's still not just bashing randomly. They are.
No, but you could, I might as well ask, like, why did we land on the moon? Why did we split the atom?
Yeah.
Can you take a object from your desk or your office and show it to me up on the screen real quick?
I've got my copy of Ibn Fadlan. Yeah, I've been using a video.
Stop. What? How are you holding that book?
Oh, with my fingers and thumbs.
That's the most important event in human history, in my opinion. That's when we went down from the tree, like the development of bipedalism, right?
Yeah.
Because the early Australopithecines, they were not more intelligent than a dolphin or or than an octopus or a whale or something.
Yeah.
So it's not the mind that creates it, it's our hands. That we have, like, our ancestors blessed us with the best anatomy for being curious and sharing that curiosity and information with each other.
So it's the cognition and the dexterity, the ability to have opposable thumbs.
The cognition comes after the dexterity, in my opinion.
Okay.
Right? So, because if you are a dog who's sitting looking, what can you do? Do you have a need to communicate? Will that give positive feedback?
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't. But if you have your hands, all of a sudden a big world opens up.
And it's a social skill, isn't it? Because you have to learn it. You have to copy. You have to be with someone to learn.
Exactly.
You can't just,
And this complexity also shows us, is shown in the stones, right? So if you take I don't have any Olduvai tools here, but if you take like a sharp stone, right? It has a few sharp edges knocked off. You can use this immediately, like you find a carcass, or you need to crack open a nut or something. You find a stone, you bash it, it comes a sharp edge, and you can, right? Because you have your hand. You can see primates doing the same kind of behavior, like chimpanzee nut cracking sites are not that different from, like, the Australopithecines, the Homo habilis stone technology, right? So they're kind of on the same level on the Olduvai stuff. That's just like, I know that if I bash a rock, it's going to produce a sharp edge, and I can use this to cut a carcass or crack a nut or something, right? But it's still a very far, like, you have to learn that somehow. So they can use that. That's why apes have very big, very extensive tool use compared to, like, dolphins or I think crows, birds. Some birds, like the corvus,
yes,
also use tools. But also it's primarily the primates that are using these tools because we have the hands.
So, if we're going to ask the question, what made it possible? You think before the brain, it was the hand.
Yeah.
But
not the hands. Not the hands. The legs. The legs is the important.
Yeah. So
because
bipedalism.
Gorillas and other primates has also hands, but they didn't split the atom. We did.
Yeah.
Because we're walking around on our feet.
There's bipedalism. Yeah. Okay. So the question comes: could we be finding earlier hominin species or pre-hominin, Australopithecine earlier, that we find in future we'll find with stone tool users? Because already we've got, I don't know how many species, depending on how you divide them up.
Yes,
10, 12?
Yes, Howard, we could. But how would you discern, how would you know if it was Australopithecine or Australochatsensis or any of this? How would you know? You wouldn't, unless you, like, find it in the hand of the... right? That's a perfect.
Yeah. So,
So you would just say that's Australopithecine Olduvai technology.
so that's where we still have the debate, don't we? Is it still a debate? I mean, I think it is, isn't it? I mean, or do we?
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's a debate because I read this article a few years ago that, as I mentioned earlier, that chimpanzee and I think it's macaque monkeys,
Yeah.
they use their stone tool or their nut cracking sites. They look like Olduvai technology. So it's a debate, but it's not based on archaeological findings because you don't, find them in the hand of the macaque. So it's more like a debate. It's not a proven archaeological fact.
It's interesting that, isn't it? And what we assume they're using these stone tools for a range of functions, but in the past it was always a default. It was for meat cutting or flesh cut.
Yeah.
But then we've got a lot of evidence of plant use, even for cutting plant material as well. Is that true?
Yeah, well, you have to use a stone tool extensively for it to make gloss. When you have Neolithic sites where they cut the grain, you get this gloss on that, so you can see that it's used for. But on other like butchering sites of that age, it's difficult to say. You have to really use this for many hours before it. So that's more like you find some glossy blades from the Mesolithic, but it's not a lot. So before that, I don't think there are any real evidence for like extensive plant preservation, because you can just pluck a fruit from a tree, right? I just rip it off and then start munching. And this, for 3 to 1.5 million years ago.
Yeah. So, where do you stand on? What are your thoughts on the arguments about the potential symbolic or ritualized significance of some stone tools? Like, I know there's been debates about Acheulean hand axes and Homo erectus, and whether this could be some kind of.
Yes, that brings us on to the next thing, because I don't have Acheulean hand axe, but I have this preform that is kind of like the same technology.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And this is like a bifacial made stone tool. You know this, but maybe some of the viewers don't.
Yeah.
Which means that they're knocked off the same. You strike off one or a few passes on one side, and you turn it, and then you work on each face. Like if you go real fast, you're like, right? Or if you keep, like I said before, you need to have a striking platform when you knock off, in order to control how the flake is detached. The platform and the core front of the face need to be under 90 degrees, right? So you strike off a primary flake, boom, and then you have the platform for the next flake, boom, and then if you keep striking off flakes in that structured manner, you will eventually end up with a hand axe.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
But hand axe is also symmetrical.
Yes.
Right? So it tells us that by this time, by the Australian, what's that, 1.8 million years ago, that's the Homo erectus group of people.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. I get very fuzzy.
More or less.
I'm not a historian. I don't do dates. I just back then, in the days of
Tuesday
yore.
morning, 3 months. No, but they are symmetrical, right?
Yeah.
So that tells us that they have a mental template for what they're going to do. They have a plan for how it's going to look. They probably made them like their fathers and mothers did, right? So they have a learned skill, maybe via observation, not necessarily through elaborate explanations or conversations, but they are at least observing the behavior of their parents and the other people of the group, right? And they also, if you're gonna use time on making a tool like this takes maybe, for me, maybe 10 minutes, but for some, maybe half an hour or an hour, you know? And that tells us that you have a plan. Like, you know, tomorrow I'm gonna go to the elephant carcass or to the place with the big nuts or the coconuts, and so I have to make this tool because now I'm here where the flint is, or the nice stone. You mentioned that earlier, right?
Yeah.
So they have this idea that they can plan for tomorrow. They have a kind of memory, right? Does that make sense? A lot of animals don't have an exact memory. If you ask them, like, what did you do yesterday? They wouldn't.
I can't remember what I did yesterday. So.
You animal, Howard. You animal.
It's age.
No, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, of course.
So they're planning, right? And that might also indicate with some goodwill that they have a sort of language or a way of communicating, right? These Homo erectus. Maybe not with big words or complicated language, but at least with signs or sounds or something that is more elaborate than animals do, right? They must have.
Yeah, we don't know exactly whether they had but some kind of range of different communication skills, hand skills, facial expressions, hand gestures, and
also specific words, right?
Yeah.
If like tomorrow we go to butcher the dead elephant, then you need to have at least some concepts that you can communicate, right? And the stones, they tell us that, right?
Yeah.
So you see why this concept, they're interesting and very important to understand why we're here. All right? Okay, so now you're getting interested in the stones. Okay? But this is, of course, a hand axe, and it's just a core tool. You can strike off a flake. Here's a sharp flake, right? And you can cut stuff with that. So if you keep on, it's not necessarily that this is the tool. Maybe these flakes, which are very, very sharp, for a few minutes until these might be the product. And this is just a core that you can transport.
Yes.
That lies good in the hand, right? So you can always strike off the little.
So it's like a portable store of the flakes. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, this makes sense that you plan, but the degree of planning is not as big as when you come up to the Middle Paleolithic. Right, that's actually what you're talking a lot about, the Middle Paleolithic. So it's like, hey, let's do a live about the Middle Paleolithic. So when you come up to, because this involves one concept of core reduction, right?
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. Here we have the Levallois core technology. I don't know if this shows up really well.
Oh, nice.
Right. I did this on a film for the National Museum.
Well, could you explain to people what Levallois means, what the Levallois technique is?
Yes. Let me just see here if I have. I have so many stones here. I'm prepared for this talk, and now I can't find the stuff I need. Okay. Anyways, the Levallois technique is kind of like bifacially, like this one is. First you knock off this area, and that gives you the platform to work this area, right? And this makes a convexity, right? Not, okay, maybe I should be careful not to go too nerdy, but where the flake terminate, that's how you make this convex area, right?
Okay.
And then, so you have like one step, you make the platform. Second step, you make the convexity. Third step is that you make your platform. You have these very elaborate Chapeau-Dixon dam faceted platforms, right? You can see it's like a Napoleon head. You probably know what the Chapeau-Dixon dam is, but it means police cap in French. The French were very much ahead of the rest of us in stone technology. Yeah, I'm trying to say so, Howard. And then, of course, if you look here, you can see that this platform here is above center of mass.
Yeah.
A lot of flint knappers, they talk about the center line theory, but it's a basic understanding of the center of mass. And if you want to strike off a blade, or a flake, you have to be above the center of mass on the face where you strike the, right? So the Neanderthals understood this. So understood that they could make a bifacial core, make it convex, and then set up a platform, and then strike that, boom, and you can see here the negative. Can you? Can you see how it's all?
Yeah.
And that's one big Levallois preferential flake knife that is detached from this.
Wow.
Right? So they understood the concept of bifacing, they understood the concept of convexity and how a flake travels on a convex surface. They understood that you have to be above the center line. And they, of course, also understood like the principle of how hard you have to hit it. Right? So now we're getting into a much more complex kind of technology. Right?
Yeah, pretty clever, those Neanderthals.
Yeah, much more clever than the Homo erectus and what I call Homo Heidelberg and all those predecessors, right? So now you can see that they are at least understanding like basic stuff, right? The basic principles of flint knapping, but then again, the question is also because there's a very far way from this to this.
Yes.
Right? There's a very different. There's the discussion whether Neanderthals were very smart or whether they were like dumb, savage, primitive.
Yeah.
You know? And I think it's somewhere in between, right? Because they didn't split the atom, they lost the race to us, at least. Or what is it? I maybe have 3% and you maybe have 2% of Neanderthal DNA.
They might be the only good thing about humanity.
So DNA.
No, but seriously, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Of you can have, sadly, the history of the planet is full of very successful species that, for whatever reason, don't survive to the present day, and sadly, we're here still. I mean, what do you think about? I mean, I was asked this a while ago about what is the oldest grave good, object, and I didn't answer because I hesitated because I don't know off the top of my head. But I suppose it depends on which species we interpret having the first graves. I mean, we have this argument that there was a possible worked stone buried with a Homo naledi, but that only goes as far as if you believe the evidence is convincing that those Homo naledi fossils were deliberately deposited by other Homo naledi.
Yeah.
And I know that's really controversial and debated, but if you jump later, then stone tools must be the first deliberately buried objects, but it depends on which burials we interpret are deliberate burials. And there's the whole debate about Neanderthal, for example. I don't know.
Also, why do you bury a dead body? Right? Is it a ritual or is it a disposal of a body? Like there's the famous Shanidar flower burials, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they found out that there was this pit dug in the Shanidar cave, and then there were pollen of flowers in that cave.
Yeah.
But then they found out there were pollen all over this.
Yes, it's bees, isn't it, or something? Maybe burrowing bees that left it, or something like that.
Yeah. So there was no deliberate placement of. But if you have these all over, these flakes, and you're littering. Okay, I can't strike anymore. Next one, and then I make a new one, and you will have this napping floor. You will have this like if you live there for generations. Even if you're digging out, you might encounter napping floor. If one of these goes into the grave, is that deliberate, or is it like trash that go?
So what you're saying is we may be over-interpreting not only the burial but the grave goods interpretations that they may be.
Oh no, not maybe. Yeah, but yeah, I'm not saying that we over-interpret it, because I think it was once imagined, is now proven, right? So it's important to discuss this, but I think it's difficult to prove.
Yeah.
That's my problem with it. There's no proof for it, right? I don't have a problem with people proposing that, hey, let's have a discussion. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating. So I want to, the last question I had for you, and I don't know, why do you do it? Why are you napping? Why are you making stone tools? I mean, fun perhaps, but sure, is this primary research for you? Is it fun? Is it education?
It's all of the above. No, I did my bachelor on Near Eastern Archaeology in the zeros, right? Or I was very much into like state formation and complex societies and stuff, because I'm always been interested in like what's the big questions in human history. You know, I'm not really focusing on one side. I'm very much focused on flint, but I also like to think about complex societies, neolithization, other questions, right? But then I didn't really have success in my studies, so I took like a long break after my bachelor. And then one time I'm watching YouTube, like do you know the show Dual Survival?
Yeah, I think
yeah, with Dave Canterbury and the other guy. And Dave Canterbury, all of a sudden, he finds antler tine, and then he finds a bottle, and then he make an arrowhead out of it. And I'm like, okay, I played a lot of Stone Age when I was a kid. We were smashing rocks, and there's flint all over them. I was playing with rocks, but not making anything more nice than, than this stuff. But then I was like, okay, can you find instruction videos on YouTube on how to do this? And we're like, oh, stop the dual survival. And go into YouTube. And then, okay, I found all these Paleo Man Jim and other YouTubers that were showing how you do this. And then I found a screwdriver and a bottle of a bottle. And then I started pressuring arrowheads out. And they were not very, very nice looking, but then and when you start, because it's so difficult to do, so challenging, and that's why I always want to like pressure yourself into like, I want to, there's nothing more satisfying than detaching a long blade. It's like, yes, I've been trying to do this for like 14 days and finally it's here. So it's a very satisfying thing to do. So that's why I kind of got like caught into it. Like, okay, I need to find good tools and good stones. And now I made my first list one. And, now I made my first knife. And wow, look at
So you did it primarily for fun, even though it built off your...
Yes, but then I resumed my studies, I think in 2016. I did my master in prehistoric archaeology, where I wrote my master on blade technology, how you know what tool was used to strike off blades. Yeah. Because if you take, like, for instance, I have some different blades and bladelets I can show you here. If you look at, for instance, here, this is struck by indirect technique. I don't know if you see the video where you like sit in the quarry and strike a large blade.
Oh, yes.
And you can see here it has a big platform, right?
Yes.
Can you see the platform? And here you have another blade that has a very, very small platform. Can you see just there?
Yes.
And this is struck by direct technique with a hammerstone, with a basalt hammerstone, right? So this leaves a small platform, and if you the most important thing is the lipping, because when you strike a thing with a soft hammer, the fracture initiate a little away from where you strike it. And that creates a lip, and you can't see it, but maybe you can hear it. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of catches onto my finger, and this doesn't have that. Right? So this tells me, along with the shape, and I can't look at just one blade. I have to look at whole blade assemblies, and it's a big work, but I can do statistics on how many have this trait, and then I can define, like, okay, this has been made from a soft indirect technique, or like this one here. Let's see. This one here has been made from like a direct soft technique.
Okay.
And then I can do statistics on that. That's what I did my master on. And you probably haven't heard of the site Shubeka. Have you heard about that site? Does anybody in the comment know Shubeka? Give a shout out of the 16 people. No, but that's a very important find. Where I found the most early bread is the Natufian site.
Ah, right. Okay.
And then I found out that in the early Natufian and the late Natufian, they were doing like direct hard, and then the final Natufian, they were doing direct soft technique. And on the site nearby, they were doing, which was a PPNA, it's a agriculture society, pre-pottery Neolithic A. They were doing with soft technique. And these two sites, they were by radiocarbon dating contemporary. Right? But we don't know if they were engaging, talking to each other, if they were 2 or 3 years apart. You can't tell that by... but you can see that all of a sudden the Tufian people start using a soft hammer, like these guys over in the PBNA side. So there's a communication between these two cultures, and they're living together side by side, which is interesting too, because the Natufians were the first to did agriculture, and you would not sit there be drinking your drink without agriculture, right? None of us would without surplus economy, right?
Blame the Natufians. So which site was that? Arkeo was asking which site you mentioned again. I can.
Shubeka. Shubeka 1 and 6. A very important site. You have the earliest bread from there, or like unleavened bread, like a grain cake. They found this lump of burnt stuff, and then they found out that it was made from grain.
So what happens for you now in terms of flint stone tool technology? You got your TikTok account. Are you still studying, or hope to study more, or do more research?
I did a PhD application. I would like to combine like 3D scanning with the stuff where I studied stone tool, because if I can make the computer recognize that there's a lipping or there's a certain platform or ridge lines or curvature, like you can see, like here's a straight blade, here's a curved, it has a distal curvature in this blade here, right? This comes from a core with a distal curvature. Can you see? So there's lots of stuff that can tell us, like, this culture uses, for instance, pressure blades is a very, very good example. We found the Maglemosian people. You know the Maglemosian culture?
Yeah. So
of course you do.
Scandinavian.
It's like the earliest Mesolithic culture for the people out in the comment. In the northwestern Europe, right? That's when the Doggerland, that's when we could walk all the way over to Britain. But they found out that in the end, or like from the middle of the Maglemosian period, they start using pressure blades. And then they found out, where does this pressure blade technology come from? It comes from Uralic, Finno-Uralic area in Siberia in Finland.
Oh.
But these guys, they were not making the same type of arrowheads, right? The Maglemosians, they were using doing like this.
Wow.
Microlithic technology.
Yeah, microlithic composite. Yeah.
But the Finno-Uralic, they were doing other kind of, that was more like this. This is just an Arnsburg arrow, but they were more but the blades were made in the same kind of way. So they found out that they were using the same kind of technology in Siberia earlier, and then they went through Norway and down Scandinavia and to Denmark and to Western Europe, right? And then they found that when they combined that study with DNA, they found that the Western hunter-gatherer and the Eastern hunter-gatherer, they met up in Norway and intermingled. So our earliest spread of technology in the Mesolithic came from Siberia, right? So they kind of like rewritten our whole early understanding of the Mesolithic via this technological analysis. So that's interesting. And I want to make the bot do that, so you just scan, like every time you dig up a lithic assembly, you scan a sample of that, and then you can make the computer via computational analysis, if I'm going to use the fine word.
Fantastic.
They can then determine who was talking to who were in contact with who, how does the technology spreads, right?
So, obviously, the main value of stone tool technology today you haven't mentioned, which is, of course, when the zombie apocalypse begins, you'll be the only one who will survive. I mean, we all know that's the real reason.
Which one would you prefer, Mr. Howard?
I don't know. Against zombies, I think the bigger tool. But for hunting, which might be more important, But no, but seriously, I mean, it shows the importance of these technologies because, it's not as if stone tool technology has gone away. There are people that still, in traditional societies were using this through the 20th century, but it's a lost art for many parts of the world. And
but also like for conflicts, the Napoleonic area were, and also like silicate rock you watching each other, we have microchips. They're full of silica, So that's just another lithic technology, but
Well, thank you. So I've run out of questions, but I think there may be questions in the chat. I'm just going to go back and see if I can find any, because I think there was one.
Yeah. Did I cover everything?
I think we've covered everything I had down to ask you. Spiritual Squirrel said, "What am I eating?" I've already addressed that.
I actually have a question for you.
Oh yeah.
Do you think that this Levallois technology, that the complexity that this express, with that, I know you're not a Neanderthal expert or anything, but do you think that Neanderthals were capable of like complex religious or ceremonial behavior and thought?
Oh gosh, I don't even know if I am.
You're not.
But I can't even understand. So I would say they must have had something. They must. I think it may not be. I know there's a massive issue of survival. I know the Upper Paleolithic sees, for cave art, and we're struggling to see the evidence. But I would like to keep I'd like to keep the door open for it, because I think that does show such a abstract conceptualization that you need to work through that.
But I mean, they never made stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
This is my drawing for my daughter. She's 3-year-old.
Aww. Better than I can do.
Don't
see, my students have to get my drawings on the whiteboard. They're probably not as good as that.
Yeah. No, she was counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for all the fingers. But that just shows like they were maybe like on the level of like, if you have to look at the tools.
Yeah.
They were maybe on a level of like what a 8, 9-year-old kid can do.
Yeah.
But
pretty intelligent, actually.
Did they have like the big discussion of like philosophy, and did they have a use for it? Did they have a use for religion? It's because there have been like Neanderthals for what, 30,000 years, maybe more. No, like 300,000 years, sorry, or earlier, right? And they never progressed beyond that. But all of a sudden, modern Homo sapiens, we come out of Africa, and then we start in like, it takes what, 40,000 years, and then we all have cities all around the world, and we have mathematics, and we have like complex technology, complex societies, right? So there is a big difference. They weren't as until then, and is that line put in religion? Does that what differ us apart from Neanderthals? Not in burial practice, because you can have burial practices, but in like religious abstract thought, did they have that? And I'm not sure. I think they may be capable of it if they were shown it, but if did they invent it? Did they have a need to invent it? No, that might. Flakes and Bone had some comment on it. I don't know.
It's a difference between capability and necessity, isn't it? And can I ask you? Martin Heavyhead has a Heavyhead Junior has a question. He says, "How much does the material being dealt with affect the construction of the tool? In other words, how much does the quality or character of the stone affect which tools you can make?"
That depends on what tool I'm making. But like, if you see here, for instance, here there's a big crack here.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to make this late Neolithic Danish dagger from a stone like that. The quality would be too poor. But I am possible to make a Levallois core from it. Right?
Right.
This blade core I can also make from poor quality, not super poor quality stone. It has to have some integrity to it. I can't go out in the driveway and find like a frostbitten. Some stones, if you hit it, they're just like. I have a video of that. Just strike a blade and just like no.
So failure must be an integral part of the process. I mean,
in sourcing material and also in the shape of the stone. Like if I want to make this, I need a chunky stone, and if I want to make a dagger, I need like a flat stone. So I go looking for stones that are. I can make a good blade core from this stone, or I can make a good dagger from this, or I can make a good axe. So I do look for source. The production started in the sourcing of the material for sure.
I'm looking through to see if there are other questions.
I think didn't Bone and Flakes had it?
Flakes and Bone. He's talking about 6 goat skulls in a circle around a Neanderthal girl burial, the Teshik Tash. I didn't know about that, so that's cool. Oh, Ibex, sorry. Ibex. He corrected himself.
Ibex, okay.
So there may be some kind of, maybe not in the grave goods, but the placing of animals may be important.
And that's in Spain? Okay, Spain. Okay. Interesting things going on in Spain.
There's strange people in Spain back then.
Didn't know about it.
Not now, of course. They're lovely.
They're Spanish maidens.
I do that. The ethical conversation. I don't know who that's about. That's really interesting. I don't know what. Sometimes I can't work out what people are asking. The idea that they had religious thought is less extraordinary than the idea that they didn't. I don't know. You see, it's about. I mean, it's about what.
What can I get that again?
I think he's trying to say that it'd be more surprising if they didn't. It'd be more shocking, more amazing if they had nothing. But we're still trying to work with the archaeological evidence.
Yeah. That's an interesting topic, because ritual behavior, right? On what level of religious thought is that? I mean, you see animals also doing certain repetitive movement when they're walking around. They always go on the right side of the tree instead of on the left side, and the stuff like that. So, on what level is the idea, right? I mean, it would be harsh, kind of. My mother just died. Just toss her aside and let's her eat. You know?
Flakes and Bone says we've got evidence of cave art from 2 sites in Spain. Oh, you've already got to that point, haven't you?
Yeah,
Sorry.
but what kind of cave art is that? It's not cave art like this.
No.
Like my 3-year-old daughter.
Scratchings and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I think the oldest one that I know from is a Indian cave where they have like for I think it's 350 years, which is a dot and a.
Oh.
It's not something special. If you give a child something, and then they will. Maybe I can find another children's drawing. Wait a minute. If I come from Helvetius, a little younger, like this.
Wow.
It's
That's
like,
my level again. You see, I don't know what's
that's
going
2
on
years
here.
old. You know, so there's a need to express yourself, but how big is that need, and how much is the imagination? I think.
Yeah.
Are we talking religion or burial practice? It's all about how imaginative are the Neanderthals, right? Because they're not as imaginative as us. That's why I think, if you ask me, that's the reason why we outcompeted them, because they couldn't share knowledge as effective as we could. They didn't have the social organization or the need to meet up with each other. Like, I think. Yeah, the Mesolithic is a good example, right? Where we have contacts all the way from Siberia to Denmark to Britain, you know? And the Neanderthals didn't have that, not in the same way.
So, I mean, another aspect of stone tools is trade, isn't it? Is you can exchange them into areas where there's no natural flint. And
yes, and that is also, it's not because these are interested in themselves, but it's because they survive, right? Survival bias. That's why flint is interesting. Because they were probably also trading all kind of other stuff, you know. Trade is maybe a little far. Exchange is a better word, right?
yeah,
But you see, like in the Danish axe planks, they are exchanged all the way from I think Finland to Scotland, all the way down to like middle Germany. So you find this evidence of very large scale exchange patterns, the networks, and you can do physical tests and stuff. Actually, I have a. Oh, that was getting dangerous.
wow.
You want to see how sharp this stuff is?
Go on, don't hurt yourself.
I have to. Just, if I can. I'm gonna have to hold it like this, and I can just. No. See, I'm not sawing anything, just. Whoa.
That's out of shot there.
And you can't see. Yeah, but I'm holding it with my legs. Yeah, I don't have 4 arms.
That's it, I can see it now.
But just see how it is.
Wow.
Just like butter.
It's like the Rama, is it Rama Church from...
This is an obsidian. I can't do it properly. Wait a minute,
No,
let me just see here.
in terms of trade, we have evidence of North American
Yeah,
trading.
like that. See, flint can't do that.
Oh my God.
This is just the sharpest material known to mankind. Oop, you see that? If I try to do
Tearing
this,
up the
flint blade,
records.
you can see it's much more dull. Yeah, that doesn't work.
I
You
can,
can see the edge here. It's totally crisp, and this is ripped.
we have some,
Right?
lots of old department files we can let you use for this to destroy the evidence of the incompetence of my colleague.
I can be your immaculator.
Shred the evidence.
Obsidian blade, and then if they come too far, I just like, up. No, but obsidian, that's also where they, in Chewbacca, they traced some of the obsidian, and Chewbacca is, as I said before, Natufian site. It's like 14,000 BP. And they found exchange of obsidian from, what was the name? Goludar, a volcano in the middle of Turkey, right?
Right.
750 kilometers away. That's pretty far for a site.
Yeah, yeah. So that this
old.
stuff was valued and
They
traded.
could source it to the west flow. There's like a western and eastern flow of lava. So they could find it right there and then see, okay, there was exchange down the line along the coast and into the Black Desert all the way. So flint can also be used to show these exchange networks. And a lot of archaeologists really like to take a map and then draw lines on it, you know. But I think if flint is interesting in the way that the thought process and ideas are expressed.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you don't have the capability of reading textual sources, or like if your organic material is very limited, the way that is preserved, then this is the best we have. And it can tell us a lot about how people are thinking. I can look at a dagger, and then I can say, okay, this looks like a Woody Blackwell dagger, this looks like a Mosher dagger, this looks like a Sulfur Stenak dagger. And I can see how these traits, how they flick terminate, and how they run, and it's all about how they're putting pressure and force on the stone. So the individualism is expressed in stone, right? And if I can make a computer determine that on the millimeter of the millimeter of a millimeter, that would be interesting, right? Because I'm not the best flinter but I'm one of the best at explaining why I do stuff, why it's interesting. That's my talent, I think.
Well, are there any? That's really fantastic, and I've learned a lot, and I know the audience have. I wonder if there's any last questions before we break up for the evening. Any last questions? Got Flakes and Bones talking about the La Pasiega hand outlines and regular geometric patterns made by Neanderthals.
Oh, is that like a thing? Okay.
More of a statement than a question. We've got a capybara in the audience. That's always good. Or came and went.
I don't know if there are any questions there. Just for clarity, did you say? Oh, okay.
Give people a chance to leave any insightful comments.
Flake and Boney knows his stuff.
Yeah, he does. He's a German archaeologist.
Oh, there's a guy from Tromsø. I had a friend from Tromsø one time. It was very nice. Well, how does the construction of tool okay?
I have very clever people in my comments. They know more than me.
Yeah, but that's only because it's not Viking times now.
Yeah. But thank you so much for joining me and sharing this. Would you be happy for me to share this on my YouTube channel?
Of course. You go ahead.
Thank you so much.
It was nice having you being on your live.
Thank you very much. And thank you for it's not as if you've joined before, but thank you so much for the support and the dialogue and the camaraderie on TikTok. Keeps us all sane.
Good. And now we go for the ball.
Now it's all gone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll start doing that. Yeah, sharing each other's
warrior. I one time did that on a Viking market where we were drinking beer from the same bowl, like skål. When we drink in Denmark, we say skål, right?
Yeah,
and that's mean bowl. So there's a thing about that. It's a true thing that you drink from the bowl and you share it.
Fantastic.
I don't know how much evidence there is for it, but anyways, skål.
Have a good one. Have a good evening, everybody. And we'll see you again next week for another Archaeodeath Wednesday Live.
Bye-bye.
Adios.
For relaxing times, make it Archaeodeath time.